right. So billing during naps. All right. So whether it's clinic and you have scheduled nap time for kids of a certain age, or you're in a school and you're shadowing or providing services in a school or a daycare and it's nap time and the child naps, whether it's at home and for whatever reason, whether you're just starting out and he or she's a little guy, or you're, deep into therapy and they're getting sick and they couldn't sleep well last night, whatever reason, planned, unplanned, child falls asleep during the session, you have to stop the clock.
Oh, good to sense that.
You were talking about sleep, and he's over here yawning.
I need a nap. No, yeah, and the other thing
So your little client Steven, or adult, maybe, I shouldn't just put it as like any individual that you're serving. I think probably, especially since I was focused on early intervention, and it happened a lot with little kids. Mm-hmm. But any individual you serve, they start yawning and they fall off to sleep. Can't bill for it.
Yeah. The other issue that you may be running into and not knowing, and we're kind of getting off on a tangent here, but I think it's really important when you're talking about this topic, is if you are allowing naps at your clinic, you may be you may need to follow some more regulations than you are actually following. So make sure. Many states have now moved their daycare regs over to the Department of Education. I think it's probably more of them now that are under Department of Education than are not. It used to be pretty much, I think, under Health and Human Services or something like that, I think. So if you are providing naps, you may be a daycare. And so many ABA clinics do not allow naps at their centers because they don't want to have to deal with that. Now, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't, but if you do, you need to make sure that you're following all of your state's regulations and how and when you are possibly a daycare. And then
right, because there are going to be all the rules around that.
And then there's the whole thing, and again, I am not a BCBA, but I know a lot of people talk about this all the time, and like, okay, is this a dual relationship? Because now you're a daycare plus you're an ABA provider. Like, okay, I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. So you're a smart person. Talk to the ethics board. I don't know if there's any kind of ABA authority that has spoken on this. Do you know? So like, but I know I see it. I see like you can't do that, and I don't know. So that's just something to be aware of.
Like any kind of a lot of the ethical areas that could potentially be seen as a gray area, you can look at if you're rural services, if you're the only provider within X amount of miles, you're in clinic and the family lives too far away to commute to come back and do a couple of sessions. There are a lot of factors to look at, and I think that really boils down to really looking at the clear, like at your intention, at your why, and having a clear intention, having it written out in the treatment plan very specifically, right? Family lives too far, child's of napping age. We have the setup in our clinic. We have all the things all of our ducks in a row, and this child's allowed to nap here. But then you're also putting in that it's, this is not part of the therapeutic process, that not part of treatment, that you're allowing the space for the nap so that they can have the afternoon session and be whatever. I don't know. But yeah, just making sure that you're clearly defining your intention and the why behind what you're doing, and that everyone's an understanding, I think can also help diminish some of that ethical gray area.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm not the BCBA ethics board by any stretch of the means. So So those are definitely things to look into. And that's kind of what this is. The talking about fraud and mistakes that are often made and unintentionally committing fraud. That's what this is. It's just really like questioning and looking into all these little things that you may not have thought about. And now, like, we're saying, hey, you need to think about them. You need to have something in place.
I mean, I'm personally fine with the whole nap thing. It's like, okay, but is this another service that you're providing? And how are you charging for that? Is this a different entity?
How are you paying?
Or you just like, because you got to have somebody looking after these kids when they're napping.
Right.
Right.
And I don't know what the ratio is, but I mean, some people might say, oh, well, I'll just have the admin person step in for an hour and there's a room full of sleeping kids, right?
Yeah, so do they need a certain training? Do they, all of this stuff needs to be.
What's the ratio? What kind of sleeping like supplies are needed? And I mean, there's a lot. So definitely look into that if that's something that you are doing. But for 100%, sure, we can say black and white, you can't bill for naps.
Correct.
You can't bill insurance for naps. And I would even say, like, if it's Medicaid, right, it's like you can't bill the family.
You can bill direct service.
But you can't bill the family, right? Like, especially for Medicaid, because that's where it gets a little trickier, right?
That's, again, this is the question
That's where it
that
gets
you're
into
going to
that
have
duel.
to figure out. Is this a daycare when they're napping? Or is this an ABA clinic all the time? So those are questions for a different podcast.
All right. So moving on.
Maybe we can get an expert in here.
Ooh, a napping expert.
No, not napping.
No, I know, but like as far.
I am a napping expert. I'm exhausted now. I don't know why. Maybe we should have left that for number 8.
Right.